Afternoon, everybody. And before we get started with today's episode that I've recorded, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for helping me get to 50 subscribers. To celebrate next Sunday, we're going to be doing a 50 subscriber special. Me and a few friends are going to be doing a Minecraft live stream where we do a dragon run, where we kill the dragon, and we will not end the stream until we have activated a beacon in the end. I hope to see you all there. It'll be next Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 5 in our Oxygen Not Included Redux series. I am down here excavating in my oil biome. I did a stream after episode 4 came out where I just did some experimental stuff, nothing that I saved, but I did some testing down here to mess around with the Slicksters and came up with a plan on how I'm going to handle them. But I want to get this area explored the whole way out so I have access to all the oil, and I'm going to make a little pond for it so that I can start doing steel first. This little thing here, I just put an insulated tile across here because there's a hot spot right there. So if I don't keep that covered, that heat will transfer into the oil and it turns into petroleum. There was actually a little puddle of petroleum there. I just deleted it because I didn't want to deal with it. I just built 3 blocks around it and then filled it in with a tile so that it got deleted. So several things I want to get done down here is, first I want to get all the way over so I can collect all the oil together and make an area for me to work over here with the Slicksters. I want to get my refinery setup done down here. Just a temporary one to get steel going, and then we'll build an industrial block like we have before. Our food situation is stable. We keep going down to about 40k and then back up to about 70k, which is fine. I have tweaked everything here so that it's working, but this is, I want to redesign and build this area separately somewhere else, but I want to get the Slicksters up and running first because they'll be able to provide us with quite a bit of food. Now that we have power, we can run incubators like crazy, so we can increase their population. But unlike the last playthrough where I did a very large farm for them, I'm going to do a little bit of an interesting design where I have one stable that lays eggs for me, and then another one that just has Slicksters in it that pile up, and then they'll consume my carbon dioxide, and I'll just keep adding more Slicksters to it, and then it should, in theory, stabilize out when I only have enough carbon. Once all the carbon dioxide is consumed, they won't keep producing more eggs because they will lose their happiness buff, and so it should balance itself out with how much my population is. We'll see. It's my theory. But so that's what I'm going to be focusing on right now. I want to get this whole biome tamed so that we can get into the steel age, we can get into plastics, and we can get our Slickster area set up. I've gotten quite a bit done down here. In order to get our Slickster area working the way I wanted it to, I needed some basic steel. So this is all temporary because I'm going to be building an industrial block setup out of the oil biome. But for now, I have a ceramic metal refinery that is pulling oil out of the oil biome and then dumping it right back in. So we're using it as a large heat sink to take all that heat that we're generating at the metal refinery and just mixing it in with the oil, which we don't care how hot it gets as long as it stays under 400 degrees. I just boxed in this reservoir for the moment because I didn't want to deal with the natural gas, and we're not ready to start running that anyway. Over here I'm getting ready to make a chamber for running an oil refinery to make a little bit of petroleum to make some plastics. Okay, so all this setup was just to get that first bit of steel. I have 1.5 tons now, basically. I'm still going to do about I'll probably get it up so I have a few tons, just so I have some extra. All I really need is 1.2 tons to make a aqua tuner to make my first coolant system, and to make a block where I can actually run metal refineries outside of here. As far as our slicksters go, I filled in this area. So when a slickster egg it hatches, which is relatively soon, the slickster is brought to this drop-off. Once this drop-off has 8 slicksters, it is brought to this drop-off. And in theory, when it comes in here, this sensor will say, hey, there's a critter in this room. It'll open this door, so the slickster will be able to move back and forth. As soon as the slickster moves into this door, this will say, hey, there's no critter in this room. It'll close the door on him. And because of the mechanics of the game, it should make this slickster fall through this door down into this chamber. Theoretically, that's what's going to happen. We're going to see if it works. Hopefully it will, and that'll mean that the slicksters will keep 8 here for breeding to create eggs. They'll get tamed. The eggs automatically get brought up here. The ones that I need are incubated, and then we have excess here hatching naturally. They'll come in here. This will eventually fill up with some oil. I'll have to figure out what to do when it gets to be too much. Shouldn't really. Frankly, after the first one, that should excrete enough oil just to cause it to be a drowning trap. And then as soon as they are hatched, the excess will drown. Should be no problem. I'm pumping all the carbon dioxide into this room. I've actually put all of our excess in here, so the slicksters are eating it pretty quickly. I'm starting to vacuum out and filter out all of the gases down in this area. Soon I will put a block here and move this pump over so that we're vacuuming out from outside, and leave a vacuum here so that we have a temperature barrier. In fact, I'm going to start working on that right now. Now that I have steel, I can put a hotter pump in here. I don't really need to, but I'm going to in case it ever gets overwhelmingly hot down here. Oh, I need to remove this. So we should never have any temperature escaping from here once we're done. But in case it does, I don't want it to overheat anything down here. Actually, no, I may want it to, in case that'll be kind of an alert to me that there's heat coming out. Yeah, I may use a lower temp gas pump. So we're going to let's just do one that is made out of iron ore. So that has a pretty high overheat temperature too. That's the only thing I have a large amount of. Let's do that. We'll put that there, we'll connect it and move this over, and then we'll let this finish to empty out that room so that we have a vacuum in between these 2 liquid locks. So all we need to do is connect up this and this. And for now I want to leave this disconnected so that this one will finish first. Then we'll put in 2 insulated tiles right here. So the pressing issue that we need to deal with while we let these slicksters, the population build up to continue working down here, is that our stress levels have gotten high. And that's because we have a few duplicates that have more skills than they can handle. And so I'm working on getting a skill scrubber set up, and I'm going to get that taken care of. And then we're going to see where we proceed from there. First thing I'm doing to handle stress is sort of a temporary measure. I had 2 dupes that were super high on the stress chain, Jackson and Jefferson. So I have Jefferson in here in the skill scrubber, which is just shaking him senseless till he forgets all his skills. And then I can reset him. Jackson, I already did that too. So now all I have Jackson doing is exosuit training. So his skill morale need is much lower, so even if it doesn't get full morale, we're fine. Same, Jefferson will be the same when we're done. He'll be, the only thing I will add is the exosuit training,
I already have 3 other mechatronic engineers. I already have 3 other cooks. So I'll probably give him cooking because I'd like to have enough cooks. Critter ranching he gets regardless. I didn't give that to him, so we won't have this skill, which I don't know why I even put that on there. It's probably a mistake because we don't need it, and none of this is needed. This whole check section here, I have other mechatronics engineers, so that'll bring us down to the point where our stress is much lower, and then we can work on doing improvements in our base to decrease stress. I'm in the middle of redesigning this Atmosuit dock. I thought having 2 different docks would be interesting to split things up. I don't like it, so I'm rewiring it and changing it up. It's going to take a bit of time. Oh, actually, no, I'm leaving that there for now to make sure my gas barrier is still intact. But so we're working on getting this changed up. I'm going to do a little bit more automation with it to change things up and make it work better. Another thing I'm changing here is I kept having issues where a little bit of water would get out from here from something in here being liquefiable at some point. I have changed it so that is not happening anymore, but just a tiny bit of water got over here and it created a barrier on top of these airflow tiles, and that was an issue. So I'm replacing all the airflow tiles that I can to mesh tiles. That way, if any liquid does get on here, it'll work its way down to the bottom, and then I can deal with it. So if we see any water down here, we'll have to fix that. We definitely do not want to get water built up in a layer down here, because it'll cause these gas vents to become infinite gas vents. They'll just keep pumping out oxygen until we burst all of our duplicants' eardrums. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but it's a lot better than gas getting trapped up here and not making it down to the bottom. So it's already, just replacing a few of those has already fixed that problem. So we're all good. So today I learned when you have a duplicant with a preset skill point, Critter Ranching 1, that they got out of the box, if you reset them in the skill scrubber, they lose that trait as well. So I had to give farming to him to get him up to Critter Ranching 1 again and have all the ranchers that I want. I don't want to mess with that. It's working well. Same with the cooks. And then I just gave him exosuit training so he can get out of the base. Took everything else off. So now if you look, the highest skill need that we have is 18 for Adams. And then after that, it's 17. So Adams is so high because he is both my researcher and a mechatronics engineer, which means he has 5 skill points from here plus 2 from here. So I'm going to scrub him because right now I'm not doing the research, so I have time to reset him without having any interruptions. And then I can decide on another duplicant to be another mechatronics engineer. I would like to have a few of them because when we build that stuff, I don't want to be waiting forever. But the idea is we will get our morale need down to a manageable level. It looks like 17 is going to be where we're at because there's a few that are at that I don't think I can get too much off of. This person I could take tinkering off of. But what we really need to do is, since we're coming at it from this end, lowering down our really high duplicants, the other thing we need to do is do some improvements around our base, and there's a lot to be done to do that. I am going to be redesigning our dock and moving our storage, but I need to move some other things out of the way first, and to do that I need coolant. And so down here we are going to be putting in a refinery. In fact, I can put that in right now as we talk. Now that I have the material I need for it, I needed enough steel to make that, and that will lead to us making our very first polymer press, which we're probably going to just put right up on top of here. In fact, I can cancel this coolant here because we can use that oil to cool it. And then we will just make just the smallest amount of plastic that we need to make a steam turbine, which means that we'll be able to do our very first steam cooled coolant loop. And then that will open up a whole new territory for us. So I'm going to get this stuff finished, get all of our piping and wiring done so that these will work, get our plastic made, and then we'll have to figure out what is our very first system that we want to get cooled down. I changed a few things up here. First of all, I installed this liquid lock, and I'm filling it in now. I'm going to vacuum this oxygen out. What I need to do to get that done, that gas pump just happens to intersect with my oxygen line, and that's fine because all that's in that little space is oxygen. So I'm just going to cut off the input for a second, let that pump get all that oxygen out. Shouldn't take it long at all. Okay, and then we can just take this line and reconnect it, and we can pull the pump out. So now we have a liquid lock here that has a air gap in between, so we can't have any heat transfer from the outside in. We're going to fill this area underneath in, pushing all this gas and liquid out. So crude oil I was bringing up from down here where it's 90 degrees, and I didn't really want 90-degree gas or liquid sitting right inside my entrance heating up the inside, so I temporarily rerouted my coolant loop to go through it. Now this crude oil is 23 degrees, which means I can reconnect this, disconnect this, we'll let that empty out and we'll pull those lines out. So we have an entrance here, it's nice and cool, no heat can get in. This oil can heat up all at once, as long as it doesn't heat up to 400 degrees. But if we have 400-degree heat out here heating it up, we have bigger problems. But it won't be able to transfer into this one, so it keeps the temperature out. My gas lines, I rerouted. I was trying to figure out a way to make it so that I could take the 3 lines coming out of the SPOM and balance it to go into the 4 lines I had in my base, because I had one coming down this side, looping around, and one coming down this side. Today's not the day for me to figure that out. I'm just a little too tired. So I turned it into 3 lines. I just made this one come down, it goes under here, it loops back up, goes around, so it still goes around the whole outside of the base, and then it hits all 4 of these gas vents at the bottom. It's fine if everything's flowing as fast as it can. These 2 atmosuit docks are now getting equal amounts of gas, which is great. I did set these to be vacancy only, which is what was causing me problems. So I had them set as always permitted. So what would happen is a duplicant would run through here, they would grab a suit, they'd go out and do their business, and then when they came back, this was closer, so they're like, oh, let's go through here and put their suit back on the rack. If these were all full, they'd just drop it right here. Well, then these docks wouldn't get repopulated with suits, and so I'd end up with only 10 suits for my 20 dupes. So now when a duplicant comes back, it will only go through one of these if there's a space to put the suit back, which should always work, because 1 suit in, 1 suit back. I did set up an emergency entrance over here. It's set to nobody can go in or out. There's a checkpoint here so that if I do let anybody in through here and they have a suit on, they'll take it off. That way if somebody gets stuck out there somehow and there's no space for them to get back in, so they can't make it into the base, I can just turn this on and let them through and then close it off again. So that's fixing a few of my problems. I think that this rerouting of the gases should cool the base down, but really I just need to get some active cooling instead of this setup. I need to be cooling my oxygen coming out, because oxygen's coming into the base here, 65 degrees, and it's going around, and as it goes around it cools down. It's getting into the 30s, and before it comes out it's down to 29. And so that's good. I mean, it's balancing out. But it's going to take that forever to cool down all the gas I have in here to balance it all out. So we'll get there now that we have some active cooling. As far as that front goes, I made a couple of tons of steel, more than enough to make an industrial complex so that I can make even more steel. Same with plastic. To make my first cooling system, all that I need is a steam turbine. I don't know that I've actually unlocked the technology for that yet, now that I think about it. I'll have to do that. But I think they use 800 plastic, and I have more than that, so we're good. We're going to clear all these. So I'm just tracking the eggs that we're using, and plastic and steel, and then the food for my hatches. The Slicksters down here are doing okay, but they're running very low on carbon dioxide, so we're going to see how well they handle living on a starvation diet. The ones down here are in an open room, so they'll get glum, which is fine. They'll never get confined, which means they'll continue to lay eggs at 2% per cycle, which means once they make it to 50 years old, they will lay an egg. They're losing 24 calories per cycle in starvation mode, so I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to get them through. We'll find out. If we keep getting a net gain of eggs, we'll know that that's fine. We'll see what happens with these guys, because they're starving. I don't know that they're going to make it to the point where they lay enough eggs for me to keep my egg population going up. It's a short-term issue anyway. Soon we're going to be working into natural gas generators and petroleum generators, and we're going to start pumping more carbon dioxide in here. So it's fine. The next episode that we work on for next week is going to be focused on two things. One, I really want to finish my gas section up here. I've been working on that slowly. I want to start working on that at a faster pace. Secondly, I want to start with cooling. Primary cooling I want to do is cooling my food so that I can start stockpiling extra food instead of having food go to waste. And then I want to put in a coolant system that uses the steam turbine to cool down my oxygen. But in order to do that, the very first thing I need to do is get the steam turbine unlocked and make an industrial brick where I can produce steel forever without having the heat issues and stuff down here. So a lot of things to do. Very first thing we got to do before we can do any of that is research, because in order to make an industrial brick, I don't know, it's going to let me go into research because I removed my research stations. So we'll have to build those again, but we need the steam turbine before we can do anything else. And in order to get to the steam turbine, we need to build a material study terminal, and then we'll also have to have our research station and supercomputer set back up. So I'm going to have to figure out where I want to do that, and do that. That's priority number one. So that's going to be the next thing I work on. But for now, we're going to call it a day for this episode. It's getting close to the time I want to publish it. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.